Gracious God, may we use our precious time upon the earth to be part of that healing force for justice that lets your people free. In Christ's name, amen. Please be seated. This is a very special Sabbath as we commemorate 400 years of African American presence and contribution in our nation. As recorded by English colonist John Rolfe, the arrival of, quote, 20 and odd, unquote, African men and women at Point Comfort in Virginia was a pivotal moment in the nation's history. These natives of West Central Africa were the first Africans to be brought to English North America. John Rolfe reported in his journal, quote, about the latter end of August, a Dutch man of war of the burden of 160 tons arrived at Point Comfort. The commander's name was Captain Job. His pilot for the West Indies, one Mr. Marmaduke, an Englishman. He brought not anything but 20 and odd Negroes, which the governor and Cape merchant bought for victuals. The landing of these first enslaved Africans in English-occupied North America was in late August of 1619, now believed to be August 25th. They were not on a Dutch ship, as Rolfe recorded, but rather on the White Lion, an English privateer ship sailing under Dutch authority. The White Lion had captured its human cargo from the Spanish slave ship San Juan Bautista during a battle in the Gulf of Mexico. Before returning to Europe, the White Lion had stopped in Virginia for rations. These 20 and odd were not originally intended for the English colonies. They were bound for the Caribbean and South America in the Spanish colonies where slavery was already well established. The Spanish had previously brought enslaved Africans to other parts of the Americas and what became the southern and southwestern part of the United States. The site of the ship's arrival is the present site of Fort Monroe National Monument in Hampton, Virginia. As the landing point for the first enslaved Africans in the English colonies in 1619, and the site of the first emancipation policy decision during the Civil War, Fort Monroe marks both the beginning and the end of slavery in the United States. With their arrival in Virginia in 1619, slavery expanded into English-occupied North America. Although the Africans arrived in bondage, they brought significant skills that their early English colonists needed to survive. They were skilled farmers, herders, blacksmiths, and artisans. Along with their skills, they brought their own culture, language, and beliefs that shaped innovations in food production, crop cultivation, and contributed to American cultural traditions. Despite the skills, innovations, and creativity that they brought to this new land, they would undergo generations of hardship and turmoil. Those first 20 and odd Africans who landed at Point Comfort marked the beginning of 246 years, almost 2.5 centuries of slavery in the United States. The first African people were brought to this continent in harrowing and dehumanizing circumstances, forcibly separated from their families, violently oppressed, brought to a foreign land with a foreign language. African Americans have nonetheless been instrumental in forging this nation from its very beginning. I would like to consider today just two people, especially for our remembrance. Sergeant William Harvey Carney, the 54th Massachusetts Volunteer Infantry, was an early recipient of the Medal of Honor and the first African American to receive the medal. Kearney was born into slavery in Norfolk, Virginia in February of 1840. At the age of 14, he learned to read and write by attending a secret school sponsored by a local minister. Both Kearney and his father sought their freedom and self-emancipated via the Underground Railroad, arriving in the whaling post of New Bedford, Massachusetts. Initially in his life, Sergeant Kearney wanted to be a minister. However, after the American Civil War started, he heeded the call of the Union Army. November 6th of 1863, in the edition of The Liberator magazine, an abolitionist newspaper, Kearney stated, "Previous to the formation of colored troops, I had strong inclination to prepare myself for the ministry, but I felt I could best serve my God by serving my country and my oppressed brothers and sisters." And so, enlisting on February 17th of the same year, Kearney joined the newly formed 54th Massachusetts Infantry. His regiment was the first African-American military unit organized in the northern states. Newspaper advertisements and recruiting posters encouraged men of African descent to enlist, and he drew volunteers from far and wide. 1/4 of the regiment's volunteers came from slave-holding states. Others came from the Caribbean and Canada. Famed abolitionist Frederick Douglass' sons, who are Charles and Lewis, traveled from Washington, D.C. and Boston to Boston in order to join the 54th Massachusetts. And then by May 14th, 1,000 men had volunteered for the regiment. On May 28th, the regiment departed Boston, Massachusetts on the Demolay steamer for the coast of South Carolina under the leadership of Colonel Robert Gould Shaw. The 54th Regiment saw its first military combat on July 16th of 1863 in a skirmish on James Island, South Carolina. On July 18th, after several days without sleep or food or water, the 54th Regiment was directed to lead the attack on Fort Wagner. Adequate reconnaissance, though, had not been conducted, and the 54th Massachusetts was unaware that 1,800 Confederate soldiers were waiting inside the fort. The 54th Regiment had only 624 soldiers. At 7:45 p.m., Colonel Shaw raised his sword as he stood by the Stars and Stripes outer barrier and led the charge of his men down the beach toward Fort Wagner. After shouting, "Forward 54th," Colonel Shaw received 3 fatal wounds. Sergeant William Kearney was in the midst of the fighting when he noticed a soldier wearing the American flag stumbled and fell. He too had been mortally wounded, and so Kearney threw away his musket, raised the flag, keeping it up from touching the ground, and struggled up the parapet, though now he was wounded in the legs and chest and arm. Kearney was able to plant the flag at the top of the foot of the wall. Despite his wounds and the gunfire around him, Kearney was able to keep the flag aloft. Kearney and the rest of the 54th Massachusetts were pinned down, and only after reinforcements arrived was the decimated unit able to withdraw. Struggling back through the Union lines, Kearney collapsed, saying, "Boys, the old flag never touched the ground." Kearney survived his wounds and later returned home to New Bedford, Massachusetts, becoming the city's first African-American postal employee and a public speaker, often at times speaking at events for veterans. In 1865, he married Susanna Williams, a local school teacher who was one of Massachusetts' first African-American public school teachers. And now, Harriet Tubman. Harriet Tubman was born under the name Araminta Ross in 1822 in Dorchester County, Maryland, to Ben Ross and Harriet Green. One of 9 children, Tubman was nicknamed Minty by her mother. Over the years, Tubman endured harsh plantation living, including seeing several of her sisters sold, never to see them again. Enslavers often viewed the hiring out of the enslaved persons, even children, as an attractive alternative to selling them. Tubman was subjected to this process and was removed from her family members frequently. Hawkless Bowley, Harriet Tubman's great-nephew, recalled in 1939 during an interview that Tubman had told him once that she was, quote, shamefully beaten by a person who rented her. She showed me a knot in her side, said her nephew, where she had been struck by one cruel man with a rope with a knot at one end for some trivial offense. The wife of the renter attempted to whip her, but Harriet would not submit to her. So later, when the woman's husband returned home and was informed of Harriet's actions, he beat her. He broke her ribs and may have lacerated her internal organs, and Harriet could no longer work. Half-starved and unable to work, Tubman was returned to Edward Otis, her original enslaver. But in approximately 1844, she married John Tubman, a local freeman. It was at this moment Tubman changed her name to Harriet, possibly to honor her mother. In October of 1849, at the age of 27 years old, Tubman successfully self-emancipated by fleeing to Pennsylvania and Philadelphia, where she left behind her husband, who was unwilling to leave the area. Once she arrived in Philadelphia, Tubman became very active in the abolitionist movement. And over the years, Tubman utilized the Underground Railroad network, returning to the South approximately 13 times to lead enslaved family members and others to freedom in the North. Tubman usually worked during the winter months and departed with freedom seekers on Saturday nights because enslavers would not be able to publish runaway notices in newspapers until Monday. In May of 1862, Tubman traveled to Point Royal, South Carolina, where she served as a nurse, treating wounded soldiers and contrabands, using home remedies that she developed. Contraband was a military term commonly used during the American Civil War to describe a new status for certain escaped slaves or those affiliated with Union forces. Tubman also assisted Major General David Hunter, U.S. Commander of the South Carolina Sea Islands, with recruiting men of African descent for a newly forming military regiment. And then on the night of June 2nd, 1863, Harriet Tubman made U.S. military history by becoming the first woman commander of a military operation. With knowledge that she had obtained through her work as a scout throughout the South, Tubman led members of the 2nd South Carolina Volunteer Infantry on a raid. The raid by Union soldiers on the Combahee River area plantations in Point Royal, South Carolina, freed more than 750 slaves. In her lifetime, Tubman had a unique experience of being both in Charleston, South Carolina when the war started at Fort Sumter, and of being in Virginia when the Confederate Army of Northern Virginia surrendered at Appomattox Courthouse. Harriet Tubman died on March 10th of 1913 and was buried with full military honors at Fort Hill Cemetery in Auburn, New York. There are many, many more African American women and men to remember and honor today. Some of those include Frederick Douglass, George Washington Carver, Sojourner Truth, Booker T. Washington, Rosa Parks, Martin Luther King Jr., Jackie Robinson, Toni Morrison, Thurgood Marshall, Maya Angelou, Oprah Winfrey, and President Barack Obama. There are millions more that go unnamed and unknown, but whose struggles and sacrifices are known to God. The journey through time and circumstance has been challenging for African Americans, with each generation supporting the next, each fighting for change, for liberty, for equality, for opportunity, and for the well-deserved respect for their contributions over the ages that we honor within the human diversity that is truly what makes this country great. The Episcopal Diocese of Southern Virginia Bishop James D. Magnus, who is a white man and a descendant of slaveholders, has said of the importance of this commemoration of the 400 years of African American history today, quote, "At a time when the racial divide in this country seems to be growing rather than diminishing, we are in dire need of a moment, an event, when we can stop and take stock of our responsibility to bring the races together, perhaps in a new manner that truly is an embrace of what it means to be a follower of Christ." At this time in our nation's history, the struggle for Christian identity goes hand in hand with the struggle of our citizens of color. It is a battle for the integrity of our faith and for the very validity of Christ's message. Now, in a recent article in Sojourners magazine, author Stephen Matson reminds us that, quote, "Christian America was established by those who were almost exclusively white, male, and Christian. It was simultaneously used as a tool to eliminate and subjugate people of color and those who were not white, male, American, or Christian." He writes, "Although there were a few exceptions, this kind of Christianity was used as a weapon to maintain dominance over anyone who attempted to upset the status quo. And in this way, the Christianity maintained a white supremacist view of humanity where white people were set up to rule. Hate and racism were so embedded within this religion that the KKK was marketed as a Christian institution, and segregation was endorsed by countless white pastors and their congregations. It is still so prevalent within the white Christianity today that many still refuse to acknowledge systemic racism as a problem." But here's the thing, my friends. The gospel, upon which white supremacy has staked its claim of divinely blessed superiority, does not in fact tell the story of white people. No one in the Old Testament or New Testament stories is white. Not a single one, including Jesus himself, who was being representative of his Middle Eastern community, who would have had olive skin, a flared nose, dark and curly hair, would have stood about 5'1", and for all intents and purposes was a dark and swarthy little guy whose blood was shed for all of us. Matson sums it up best in his article when he concludes this: "The message of Jesus, an ethnic minority who was unfairly arrested, incarcerated, and murdered by a ruling empire, is that the love and power of Christ is meant for everyone. This is why, throughout history, despite the horrors committed in Christ's name, people of every race, gender, and creed have emulated the life of Jesus by loving those around them, freeing them from bondage, righting justice, empowering the downtrodden, and loving their neighbor as themselves." From over the past 2,000 years, then, of our faith history, from the 400 years of our nation's African-American history, we must pledge today to get this one thing right above all things. God loves us all. No exceptions, not ever. No one is excluded. Everyone is my neighbor. And all God's beloved deserve dignity and justice for all. In Christ's name,